Remembering Connecticut, chain migration, and Connecticut's ethnic communities. It was one of the greatest migrations in history. Between 1880 and 1922, tens of millions of people left southern and eastern Europe and came to the United States. Hundreds of thousands of them came to Connecticut. Just in the first decade of this century, nearly 250,000 immigrants listed Connecticut as their intended destination. By the 1930s, Connecticut had the third highest concentration of immigrants and their children of any state in the nation. These immigrants are often imagined as individuals torn from family and friends and thrust alone into an alien world. One historian wrote of them, "Emigration took people out of traditional accustomed environments and replanted them in strange ground among strangers where strange manners prevailed. With old ties snapped, men faced the enormous compulsion of working out new relationships, new meanings to their lives." But for many, the experience of immigration was not like that at all. They came by a process known as chain immigration, in which immigrants already established in America brought others from their families or towns to join them. The networks created by chain migration helped immigrants find lodging, work, and social life in the New World, and laid the basis for the strong ethnic communities that persist in Connecticut's cities even today. Wolf Barson was a Jewish immigrant from Russia, whose brother paid his fare to Connecticut.
I entertained no fears about going to a strange country, for I had a definite destination. It took 14 days to make this trip, and the vessel landed in Philadelphia. As the fare was paid to Wallingford, Connecticut, I was led to the train that took me to Wallingford. My brother met me at the station, and we walked to his home.
An Italian immigrant was welcomed to Bridgeport, not only by a family member, but by a whole community from his town in the old country who helped him get established in the new.
My brother came to meet me at the boat, and then we came to Bridgeport on the train. He said that Bridgeport was the best place because there were a lot of people from the old country that we knew in Bridgeport. When I got here, I was glad to see all the people that came from my place, and they started to make a good time for me. They made a party, and they had wine and biscotti and lots of meats and macaroni. I was surprised that we had macaroni because I had thought they only had this in the old country. Then my brother told me that he had a place for me to board with some people that he knew, so I went to stay with these people. After 2 days, my brother took me to the shop that he was working in, and his boss saw me and gave me a job.
These patterns were common among immigrants to Connecticut. Of those immigrants interviewed for a study made in the late 1930s, nearly 2/3 had relied on kinship or village ties for the information and resources that initially allowed them to migrate. Nearly 85% first lived with relatives or friends from Europe. Nearly 80% found their first jobs through relatives and friends. Often, those from the same village, town, or province clustered in the same area. In New Haven, people from Amalfi, Scafati, and Atrani, 3 towns on the Salerno coast of Campania, lived in one neighborhood. Those from the provinces of Benevento, Avellino, and Caserta lived in another. Those from the marches occupied a third. Most of the large Italian population of Middletown came from the single town of Melilli in the Sicilian province of Syracuse. The communities built up by chain migration were tightly knit, at times even insular, and they provided their members not just with a place to live, but with familiar language, customs, and values. As an immigrant to New Britain put it in the late 1930s,
I've been an American citizen for almost 20 years. I live and have lived most of that time right here in the Polish community, in one place or another, not more than 15 minutes walk from the Polish church. Most of my activity is confined in this section, for I live there, trade there, have my friends and neighbors there. In fact, there are so many Polish people there that most of the talk is in Polish. I trade in a Polish grocery store. My tenement boss is Polish, so you can see that in a casual sort of way, I live in a community which is almost segregated from the rest of the city.
Can the members of such a community be fairly described as, quote, replanted in a strange ground among strangers with old ties snapped.